Right guys, welcome back to episode 21 of Destination DMU. As you can see, we are nearing the end of this slog on 51412. Lots has happened since the previous episode. Patch gone in, getting the roof sorted, and just getting near the end of it really.
Yeah, and you might notice as well, all these bump stops are off. They were a bit of a pain, but I will take you through, because we're re-rubbering them, I'll take you through a little bit to do with that, how we do it, and some of the tools you might want if you're planning on re-rubbering them, which we were because they were shot. Apart from that, you can see the little patch in the bottom there that wasn't done in the last episode has now been done, and the hinge is basically ready to be fitted. So yeah, but apart from that, we're going to hopefully, well, we are going to get this in blue. That is what's going to happen this episode. I'm going to fit that dreaded window that I've been hyping up so much in the last episode. And then we're going to take the corridor off because we need to see what's behind there. You know, we've come this far, so we might as well take it off. It's showing a bit of signs of some bit of rust jacking behind some of those bolts. So we're going to take it off, completely restore it, and then bang it back on, do any metal work behind there. So that's what you've got to look forward to this episode. And on top of that, we have done the gutter. We've welded it fully. This time we did it with the MIG welder. We bought a spool gun. A little bit of details with that. You need to preheat it. No particular temperature that I aim for, but about 3 minutes of heating with a MAP gas torch. Before you weld it, you will get a lot stronger weld. But yeah, we've now moved on to MIG because it's such a quicker process. I don't have to take so many, you don't get any problems with slag inclusion, etc. So that's what you're going to see first, and then we're going to get it up. Once we've painted this, we're going to get it up there. So over to Michael, straight into a time lapse of welding two of the sections of that guard together. Hope you enjoy. Right, so now you've seen that gutter be welded together, I think we had to do, in this case, with the gutter, I think we had to do something like 7 or 8 joins, which I think was a little more than the previous, the driver's side. But now we're onto these bump stops. Now you'll notice here there's a nice plethora of bump stops that I've been working on. I've had 40 to do, as we have 10 doors per side. Each door has a bump stop, and each panel has a bump stop to go against that other bump stop. So there's been 40 to do, so I've had to re-rubber 40, or I will have to re-rubber 40. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of the process. So this one is basically what comes off of the DMU. You can see there, it's had a bit of chunks taken out of it, it's all rotten. And on the back, we get that lovely metallurgic reaction there. In this case, because this one was off a door, between the aluminium and the brass. Now, they come in 2 to 3 different types. I will find you an aluminium one. As you can see, aluminium on the back here. These are slightly shorter. So we've got about a 50-50 split of brass ones and aluminium ones. So to prevent the reaction from happening between the brass and aluminium in the future, we're going to put all the aluminium ones on the aluminium doors and all the brass ones on the panels. As you can see here, nice and brass. And another type is this one. We found these mainly on driver's doors and cab doors, so your second man and your driver's door, but not on the panel, surprisingly enough. But you'll notice here, if you look into it, it's got a thicker wall. And trust me, you notice that when you're trying to get the rubbers out. You can see here, here's one that doesn't have that thicker wall, and here's one that does. So those are a few intricacies. Equipment you're going to need for doing this is a beefy vise, ideally, or a hydraulic press. And if you've got a beefy vise, make sure it can handle having a bit of a cheater bar put on it, because some of these really don't like to come loose. So, and then also what you need ideally is some pipes, or in my case, I have some larger sockets, which is really handy because it means I can get exactly the right size. So for removing these out, what you do is you make sure that you've got enough clearance in here for the, bad bump stop to come out. Then you do that, you find yourself a rod that will fit through the hole inside of these bump stops, and then you basically just give it your all, and in some cases you are giving it your all. So what you're going to see now is in real time. I'm going to put this in the vise. I'm going to show you this last one done that I'm doing for today, and then I will show you how to re-rubber them. So what we're going to do, open up your vise, all the basic stuff. Align everything, as you are going to be putting a lot of pressure on this. And everything up. Nicely try and get that as central as possible. And then you're just going to squeeze. You're going to get to about that point, and then it's going to start binding up on you, nice and good. And then just going to come along with your bar. And now I felt the pressure ease off, which means that the back of that now has gone into the socket. Very easy, push that all the way through. Then you undo your vise. In this case, you'll notice it's the bit of the bump stop that's come out. It's a bit of a conical shape. Nice bit of rubber there. And then with these, if you're lucky, they just pop out and you've got a nice bump stop there. And then you get these, which are your bits that remain round here. And then obviously we've got all this nice aluminium oxide and all that horrible stuff. What I do is I come along with a purple disc, and you just do that, and they come up really nice. These will then get edge primed. Obviously this one isn't painted, but this will get edge primed, then get glossed, and then it'll get put back on to add another layer between any metallurgic reactions that are going to happen. So now that I've done that, I'm going to clean this one up quickly, and then I'm going to take you to the smaller vise. I'm going to jump in between the smaller and the bigger vise to show putting one of these nice brand new rubber bump stops in, and yeah, take you through some of that. So now that I have stripped all of the oxidization off the back here, what we're going to do is we're going to fit a new rubber. It's very simple. You just basically put it in and you squeeze. But a few intricacies with that I found quite helpful. Lubricate the rubber. That is helpful. As far as lubrication goes, I believe from what I found, use a synthetic motor oil, or if you want to play it really safe, use something called red rubber grease, which is a grease that is deliberately designed to preserve rubber, basically. When these get fitted onto the DMU, when these are flush in, we're going to put a bit of that on the back to preserve the back here, because they do dry out over time. And when it goes outside the shed for storage, 51412 that is, we will probably get a bit of that red rubber grease and we will completely cover the bump stops to prevent the weather getting in and to preserve the rubber. Obviously when it goes into traffic, we'll clean all that up. But we will, there's a little gap that will be left in here naturally, and we'll make sure there's a bit of grease in there just to help preserve them. So what you do is you get your vise, open it up. Now I find, just get yourself a little syringe, just for your controlled. You don't want too much oil in there, as you know. I've done, I think about 20 bump stops with this syringe, and it was at 10 mil, and it's now only gone down to just over 5. So you can get away with using very little oil. But I did try it without oil, and yeah, that didn't end well. So I started ripping the actual new rubber bump stop, putting nice lines down it. So before I got too far with that, I reversed the process. So what you're going to do is you're then going to basically seat your rubber in there. And for stage 1, you're going to put it in your vise, and you're just going to get that started. Goes in very easily, and you're just going to get that started right up to where they're flush. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go to your socket rail, or find a section of pipe, and you're going to go through your sockets, and you're going to find a socket that is just big enough that basically it will sit on the edge of your bump stop but not impede the rubber going through. And this one, this is, for me at least, this is a 32, and that one has been working quite well for me. So 32 it is. And then stage 2 is you align your bump stop like that. Open your vise up. It's quite a good idea if you're using shallow sockets for this. Make sure that you have got the depth in the shallow sockets, but if you're using deep or semi-deep sockets, make sure your vise can open up far enough, because that is I found that to be almost a little bit of a problem doing some of this. And then with that, you're not going to quite get this flush. So you can see there, it's a little lip. Now we don't want that, because that will enable water to get in. So what you do is you go to your socket rail again, and you get another socket. For me at least, this is another deep socket, which is why I mentioned about the capabilities of your vise. And be very careful. This socket is a 22. 22 or 21 would do pretty good. This one is almost exactly the same size as the rubber going in, which makes it ideal for this. Because and I don't use the hex end, I use the drive end, because you've just got more surface area there, and you'll get a better push. From experience, I found that. So you let that lined up, and then you just squeeze, and you just keep aligning it until you get a nice seat in there. And as far as pushing it in too far, I wouldn't worry about that, because I've done that before to try and give some room for the grease, the aforementioned grease that I've been talking about. Yeah, it just, because it's nicely lubricated in there, it finds a seating point, and no matter how far you press it, it will come back to that natural seating point. So you can't really mess this one up, he says. So yeah, and then you just go around, you make sure it's all nice and flush. It's a little bit of a finicky job, but if you've got the right tools for it, I've been able to do a bump stop in 5 minutes. So yeah, there you go, you've got a little bit of oil on your brand new bump stop. For the meantime, sacrifice the leather gloves. There you go, and you've got a nice flush end of your bump stop. So yeah, there you go, and I believe this is bump stop, I think high 20s this bump stop is. So yeah, but yeah, and there you go, and you just rinse and repeat until you've done 40 of them, and these should hopefully last for a very long time. So yeah, that is how to redo a bump stop, and I think now on to doing a bit of painting on the DMU, I believe. So yeah, hope you're enjoying the video. Like and subscribe if you're new. If you're enjoying the video, just like anyway. It all does help get our videos out to a larger audience, so we always appreciate that. So yeah, let's get on with the video and get to completing the last bit of the DMU, and then we'll probably get to refitting these in this episode as well.
Right guys, so as you can see, I am pea greening the body sides now, the final section of this unit. I've sanded everything down, and I've used panel wipe just to clean it all up, and now she's getting the first coat of pea green before it will get filling and then more sanding, etc, etc. Right guys, so what you see me doing here is etch priming the doors, the final 2 to do on this unit. I'm just going around doing all the little jobs that are left, which includes a lot of painting really. So there's these 2 doors to do. Then I've got to put some filler on this, get this up to a nice looking standard, and then we can put some more pea green on, and then we can start thinking about undercoats, and then eventually the gloss coat to seal it all in.
So here we are in a little bit of a different place. We're at the back. You can see a little bit of the corridor here, and you can see these exhaust stacks. Now, I believe, are going to go straight through with these because the cans were fitted on just after or around refurbishment, and I believe we found a few examples where they're not on just before refurbishment, but corridors are on, and that's the time period we're going for. So the stacks need to come off. They need to come off anyway because it gives far better access to the corridor to get that off. So what you're going to see me do now is you're going to see me undo some nuts on the stacks where they hold them up. Then I'm going to go down, undo the brace down the bottom, and then cut them off where there's a join just after they come out of the buffer beam. And then I will talk you through some exciting stuff to do with this corridor and a few tips and tricks and maybe things to look out for if you own one of those. So, as you've seen, we got the stacks off, came off fairly uneventfully actually. A little bit tight getting into some of them bolts on the connection where the exhaust is. So bear that in mind. If you can't do it with a really big angle grinder, you need to get yourself obviously like a 4.5 inch or something in that range, or one of those little reversible cut-off tools. They're quite good for stuff like that. They've only got like a 2-3 inch blade on them. But now onto the actual corridor. As we do want to get this off. But before we can get this off, you can see there's this nice plate here. And what that does is that provides basically a smooth walking surface. There's a rubber mat that should go on here. You see the places where that's held on here. Rubber mat's long gone. But this kind of slides, and there will be some lubrication there. It's completely disappeared to prevent excess wear. But what you're going to see now is you're going to see me take this off. And then we will move on to how to get a corridor off. So there you have it. Quite a lot of rust in there, as I'm sure you just saw in that short time lapse. And it's quite rusty. Not looking the best. It's quite thick. But I'm going to take you through a little bit of the structure of how a corridor goes together. So that bit of metal there, along with I imagine some packing. You can see here there's a bit of tarpaulin, or you may not be able to see because of the angle, but there's a tarpaulin just rests on the top there. So that is obviously the corridor connection, the bit you kind of see the most of. And obviously it's clamped in there, but how they do it is they put the corridor, they get this, put the fabric on it, and clamp it in, and then it can't go nowhere. So some of those bolts are cutting through. Not only will the bolts hold the rubber on the top of that plate that now isn't here, but they also hold this. So you see that comes apart. So got the knife just for a few stubborn sections here that didn't want to play ball because we aren't keeping this for obvious reasons. Nice. So there we have it. That is now its own ring, as you can see it moving. And what I'm going to do now is, you might be able to see, but it's right behind me. I'm going to take you through what actually was in here that was holding the side, because I've told you what holds the bottom, but there's also a little bit that looks like this, holds the side and holds the top. So what I'm going to do, scoot you back, and I'm going to explain kind of how a corridor goes together in my best estimation, having only taken one apart so far. So, as you can see now further back, so we've got this bit that moves, and you can see there's two rods up there that hold it, and there's some springs in there, and there's some big bits of steel as hangers. This is all the corridor is. This is all the moving bit is. It's basically a big steel ring. So, how do you take one apart? Well, for a start, before you can do any of the fun stuff you've seen, there's this bit. Now this is a bit of fiberglass that sits in, and as I was saying earlier, clamps all of this tarpauling into this metal ring, so that as it moves, the tarpauling moves. If it's raining, you don't get wet. If it's, it's obviously windy, there's turbulence in between the two units, you're not going to get nice and drafty. So this goes in there to clamp that up. Now this is fiberglass. Forewarned, if you do this, it's a little bit of a pig to get off, and I imagine it'll be a little bit of a pig to get back on as well. The sides, no problem. There's screws and there's wood in this fiberglass. I believe there's some kind of wood, something you can basically screw a wood screw into. I imagine it's wood, maybe some MDF, but I can't actually see because it's completely encased in fiberglass. So anybody out there that knows, drop it in the comment section below. But I think it's wood, maybe an MDF, something like that. So this goes in there. There is then also, there is like an MDF barrier as well. So screw goes in, metal, MDF barrier, then the curtain, then it goes into here. So this is like the big clamping thing that holds the tarpauling in. But yeah, a bit of an arse to get off, and you can't really put too much pressure on it if it doesn't want to come off because, well, it's fiberglass and it's been exposed to UV. It's not the strongest material in the world. It's quite brittle in places. So we got very lucky. There's only a few small chips from an area that wasn't going very nicely for us. So I get that out of the way. So then how do you remove this? Well, your hangers, there is basically all they are, a really long bolt with some threaded nut at the end. We are going to replace that, ideally with some stainless hardware. We've got to look at all the specs. Once we get it down, we'll look at sizes and all that, lengths, etc. But we need to replace those rods that move, but they've got a hex on the top. So, you think, oh, yeah, how are you going to undo those nuts? Well, it's basically a long bolt, so we can actually stop it from moving at the top. So we're going to get that off. Those springs will then, come off. We don't know the condition of them. They look pretty rusty. We're going to see if we can find some new ones, not like they're made anymore, but we're going to see if we can get the closest, with the strength we need and the sizes, etc. And then what will happen is we'll lower this off, and then basically this corridor section, so this comes off, and then this bit of tarpauling is its own unit. And then just like I've described here, there's a very similar clamping mechanism with a load of bolts here. They're dome bolts, and they go through to some wood on the inside of the corridor, and they too act like clamps, and they clamp the corridor to the DMU. And then once you get the corridor off after undoing those clamps, then you take the bit off that's actually connected to the DMU. So hopefully what I'm going to be able to do here is click my fingers, and hopefully this will just drop down. So there you have it. That is corridor off. And yeah, so, didn't really look that bad from the outside, but, it's quite rusty down the bottom here. And also at the top, a lot of water ingress. If you have got a corridor and it looks good, just do the due diligence and just maybe have a look under the cover on the top, because there is this tarpaulin cover that covers the main set of the main corridor, like tarpaulin. But we'll go into that, and we'll go into those sections and everything that needs to be done to them later on. But yeah, a lot of holes in the top, and we only found them when we started chipping away, bits of really bubbly paint and rust, and taking bits off. So there you go. She looks a little bit bare now. But yeah, so that is that. We also got this plate off, just some bolts. It's literally got the plate that was on the bit that moves here, just there. Bit of a nightmare getting that off, and something you don't see when you're not on the platform is under here. There is actually a cable. So there's a little thing here that you put a bolt through with an eyelet of cable, and then it connects onto the gangway, because as you saw, I was able to move that quite a lot. That restricts the movement so that you can't get a gap in between the two plates that slide, so that nobody can get their foot jammed in there and nobody gets injured. So yeah, that is that, and you can probably be able to see on that panel as well, during some of those stages, filling had been taking place, sanding had been taking place, and now those last 2 panels are filled, they were sanded, and now they're in pea green. So what you're probably going to see next to do with this is you're going to see probably some wire wheeling, us going into a bit more detail about, you know, some of the things, you know, the rods, for example, not in good shape. Check your rods. Some of the bushings as well, quite a lot of wear on some of those bushings, so we're going to have to, you know, go into, well, you know, where we're going to get them from, because I don't believe they're made anymore. If you do know where they're made, then, you know, put it in the comment section below, as that would be really helpful. But yeah, there's quite a lot of wear with some of those bushings, quite a lot of wear, you know, in general up there, but mainly all rust related and all corrosion related. But yeah, the next thing you're going to see with this is we're going to strip it, really. We're going to strip this all down, and then you can see that we have, you know, we've tried to patch this here before. Those were some of the first patches we did on this DMU when we thought it was just patch it, come in, patch it, take the dome off, redo the dome and put it back on, and then put it out, and not have to bother with, you know, most of the stuff we've done. But what we're going to do here is we're going to take this out because we are unsatisfied with the finish. We'll take it out probably a little bit higher. I think the reason why these bowed out is we didn't actually weld them on the back before we put a load of heat in here and welded them up, so they wanted to bow on us, and they did. So, and then what we're going to do, obviously clean up all here, you know, and then under here is the real nasty bit for, as far as the body side goes, mainly because you can't see under there, and especially when the corridor and the tarpaulin is on, you can't get anything there. You know, if you couple together, you go good luck. If, you know, we've got vacuum hoses here and all that, but I believe there is bodywork there, and I believe, from what I can feel, that it's just a section that we can kind of take out. So we'll take out and put a new bit of metal in there, and you know, we'll also wire wheel all of this. You know, we one of the first jobs we did when we were outside before we got into the shed. But now, you know, you can see this primer that we used has gone rusty. It's been that long, but now we've got free reign. You know, we've got free reign, so we will come in that with that. It's already been needle gunned. It will just be a case of stripping all the old paint off, you know, treating any rust that is there, and then doing it properly like we have done with the front buffer beam. And then, yeah, it will be putting it all back on, you know, getting it painted up to blue with the rest of the unit, and this will probably be one of the last things to go back on, just, you know, by nature of when we've decided to do it. But I think on the next one, we might do this a little bit earlier, because it's stuff that can be going on in the background. You know, a lot of work, Paul does a lot of work, and you don't see most of that because it's the same job over and over and over again. So once you've seen it once or twice, you know, you've seen it 100 times. But Paul is the kind of person that does all of this important stuff, you know. When something comes back nicely painted and all that kind of stuff, all that little part, he's usually done it. So very important to have a Paul on your team, really, because it means that me and Michael can get on with all the really exciting stuff, but Paul is literally grinding in the background on most occasions. So yeah, that's what you're going to see next. And yeah, I hope you're enjoying the video, and yeah, look forward to getting this back on, getting some straight pipes on her, and then in the future, see how she sounds, because she's going to sound a little bit different. She's going to have a slightly different tune to when we last ran her. So yeah, let's get on with the video.
Right guys, so as you can see here, I'm applying the first coat of grey undercoat, high build as well, which I've thinned down to the right consistency. So this is going to be the last bit of getting the unit nice and uniform, and then the next stage is getting it all blue and matching.
So now that you've seen, well, the grey go on, a little update on the corridor. We have, as you can see, we have removed all the paint from it. And a few things that if you have got a few problems with your door shutting in the corridor, that you should note. There is this plate here that is welded onto the structural, the main structural frame of the DMU. And you have basically where the wooden floor, there's a bit of a gap there where they don't meet. Now, if your door won't shut, this kind of gap that's about 10 mil deep and 50 mil wide has a habit of, well, rusting depending on how watertight your unit is. And we were struggling at, earlier on in the restoration of this with shutting that door before we started filming YouTube. And this was one of the reasons why. Thankfully, we didn't go too crazy with the sander trying to get it to fit. We gave up on it when we got it to fit 1 week, and then we came back the next week and it just didn't fit that week. So if your door is a bit, stiff, take your corridor off. You'll probably find that you've got a water ingress problem somewhere that you don't know, and that's filled up with rust, and that's then, stopping the door from closing as it's lifting the floor up. But an update really on this, as you can probably see, the good thing about stripping it back to bare is that you find out little rust pockets. And here we have a few. As you can see, that patch is quite tight, so it's holding itself in there. And that patch is up there, just as basically a placeholder. If we've got any small patches, we either jam them in so that they stay where they should, so we don't lose them, because you'll be surprised how easily you lose stuff. Or we get a bit of tape and we just stick it on next to the hole. But those bits of rot, they came from the fact that the roof leaked at the back of that counter that you probably saw, like episode 14-ish, I imagine, I guess. So yeah, the water came off the end of the counter and then started leaking down our crash pillars, which, as you can see, actually are in pretty good shape, which is quite nice. Another thing that we've done as well is we've obviously chopped some steel work out. So you're going to see that be done next. A little bit of intricacies with this plate here, and that is that actually there isn't a slot in the bodywork. It's literally just a solid bit of plate, and it stops. If you take one apart, you'll know where it stops, because it'll be a pain to take apart and you'll realise where it stops. So that's actually a solid plate, because obviously these were just plated straight over before the corridors were put on. So you're going to see us weld in those patches. We ground down this patch here. Admittedly, it's 2 years old. You can tell it's our work from 2 years ago, because we have improved quite a lot. But apart from that, if you have any information on the springs that we need for the corridor, we've asked our people that are very good with providing us quite accurate information, have all the sheets, and they haven't been able to find anything for us. So for whatever reason you were a fitter, or you know the specs of that spring, then let us know in the comments, because that would be greatly appreciated. Likewise, anything else here that we haven't mentioned or we don't know, we'll probably let you know. Ask for your help, really, because we get out to quite a lot of you now, which is quite nice. So thank you to all of you that have liked, subscribed, commented. We really appreciate it. And then obviously this will hopefully go pea green. We'll probably say we might do that this episode, because I understand that we're coming up on 30 minutes. Don't want to make this videos too long for you. So yeah, you're going to see that get welded in, then you're going to see that go blue, then you're going to see us fit a window, and then I think we're going to call it quits there. So let's get on. So as you can see, boom, done. A little bit finicky getting in behind here, but as you would have probably seen, got in behind here and put those stitches on the back. All went in lovely. She's lovely and flat as well. She's far better than what we did previously. And even this one that bowed out slightly is now quite good. So now, what you're going to see is, this get pea greened, as you can see. Michael is currently wiping the first coat of grey, as 2 high build undercoats go on before we put that holding coat of gloss on. So yeah, you're going to see the green probably next, and then probably straight over to the blue or something similar. So yeah, let's get into that.
Right guys, so that wraps up this very extensive episode. As you'll see, a lot has been achieved this episode. So obviously what I'm standing right next to now has had a grey and the blue completed. So that now means both sides of the vehicle are in blue, just leaving the corridor end left to do. Which you'll obviously see the corridor has been removed as well, which was another big job ticked off the list. The gutter is obviously all welded together now, ready to be fitted in the next future episode. And yeah, plenty's been happening really, hasn't it?
Yeah, obviously got all those bump stops done. Really trying to take you through how to do it, because that isn't just DMU specific. That is most rail vehicles, heritage rail vehicles have those on. So yeah, gutter will be going up. We'll probably take you through some of the restoration of those corridors. I was saying earlier we were struggling to find specs for the springs. I have now sorted that since the filming, where struggling to find specs. We're all good now. We're going to have them manufactured specially, but good price, etc. So we're getting the top really spec that we can for them. So yeah, as you can see, we're getting so close now to actually finishing this unit. The window unfortunately hasn't gone in, but we will get to that. I'm not going to make any more promises on that, but that will very, very likely be the next episode. The next episode will really be taking this from a holding coat into something that is almost good enough for traffic in our mind. So we'll sand it down, we'll get that second coat of blue on. We won't varnish it. That will everything we plan to come in together for a repaint and varnish before they go out completely fitted with interiors, etc. So they come out looking absolutely, the dogs. So yeah, but that is really it for this episode. We've done a massive amount of work, got that corridor off, and so hope you've enjoyed. And been a very long episode, but hopefully a lot of good content in there for you, so you haven't noticed the time fly by. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for watching to the end, and I will see you, and he will see you in the next very exciting video.